All right, let's get started with a bit of background here. So, I'm 43 years old, and my wife, who's 40, and I have been married for 16 years. We got two great kids, a 14-year-old daughter and our 9-year-old son. Now, I won't say everything's been smooth sailing. Our early years were rocky, but we weathered those storms and came out stronger, or at least I thought so. We married young, so we had a lot of growing up to do, but I believed we could tackle anything as long as we were together. Looking back now, maybe that was wishful thinking. My wife has been a manager at a big advertising company for the past 3 years, and I work in engineering, where I've been for 7 years. Both our jobs pay pretty well, and we've built a comfortable life together. We've always been a close family, too, making time for our kids and creating memories despite our hectic schedules. I try to be a good dad and husband, but things went downhill fast when I found out she'd been having a long-term affair. That brings me to my discovery. For the past 2 years, my wife had been so distant. No matter what I did, it never seemed to be enough. She'd constantly compare me to her boss, telling me how he did things right or how he made his wife feel special, and questioning why I didn't do the same. When I'd ask her what she wanted from me to make things better, her answer was always the same: don't ask, just know and do it. I read books, I did research, tried all sorts of things to bring back the spark, but nothing seemed to satisfy her. Every attempt I made was met with lukewarm thanks at best or disappointment at worst. Looking back, I can see I was trying to fix something that wasn't my problem in the first place. We'd even grown close with her boss and his wife. They had kids around the same age as ours, so we'd all get together for barbecues, family outings, and even game days at the arcade. I trusted her boss, even confided in him about our marital struggles, thinking he was a genuinely good guy. Turns out, I was way off. One night, everything changed. My wife was lying in bed next to me, laughing and texting someone. When I leaned over to see what was so funny, she jerked her phone away like I'd invaded her privacy. Furious, she demanded to know why I was snooping. I told her I just wanted in on the joke, but she snapped back, saying it was none of my business, and stormed off to the bathroom. That was the first real clue that something was very, very wrong. I made the mistake of confronting her the next day, and of course, she denied everything. I asked to see her phone, and after a long standoff, she finally handed it over, although, by then, it had been sanitized. Her messages were a mess of gaps and missing conversations that were impossible to overlook. But I didn't have solid proof. So I handed the phone back, and we didn't speak of it again until a month later. I enlisted a buddy to help retrieve deleted messages from her phone. Meanwhile, my wife had practically stopped using that phone, having switched to another one I didn't have access to. Finally, we recovered enough text fragments to confirm my worst suspicions. She was in an affair with her boss. I knew confronting her wouldn't get me anywhere, so I decided to wait and plan. In the meantime, I was struggling emotionally, trying to keep it together for our kids. I broke down in front of my friend, not knowing if I could keep going. 3 days later, I picked up a book, How to Help Your Spouse Heal from an Affair. I hoped giving it to her might somehow break through to her and save our marriage. But that Saturday, she claimed to have an emergency at work and warned me not to wait up. The story didn't sit right with me, so I called her office, only to get no answer. It turns out they weren't even open that day. She finally came home at 2 in the morning, went straight to shower, and climbed into bed without a word. I asked why she'd come home so late, and she brushed me off, reminding me she'd told me not to wait. I was at my breaking point. The book I'd bought went straight back on the shelf. I knew she wouldn't care. Desperate, I reached out to her boss's wife, hoping to gain some stability. I figured if anyone could understand, it would be her. She was as devastated as I was and wanted to confront him immediately. But I warned her he'd probably just lie and cover his tracks better. Instead, we met at her place to discuss everything, and I shared the little evidence I'd gathered. So, the boss's wife and I decided we needed more solid proof. So we each agreed to gather evidence on our own and compare notes. I started keeping a closer eye on my wife, while she did the same with her husband. It turned out to be surprisingly easy on her end. He was so arrogant he hadn't even bothered to delete the text between him and my wife. The few messages I'd seen before started to click into place, and we soon had the full story. The affair had been going on for 2 years. We were both furious, She wanted revenge, and so did I. They'd been with each other everywhere. Her house, our house, fancy hotels, business trips. It was sickening reading it all. They even sent each other photos, but we skipped over those. We didn't need to scar ourselves any more than we already had. We both knew we wanted payback, but neither of us was looking to have our own revenge affair. If they wanted each other so badly, they could have each other for good. We each served our spouses with divorce papers around the same time, completely committed to ending it. They had no idea we were onto them, and we both kept up the act while we got everything ready. When we finally had our plans in place, we discovered through collaboration exactly where they'd be spending their next getaway weekend. Together, we pinpointed the hotel they'd booked. I showed up there with the boss's wife, knowing they had no clue what was about to hit them. I also brought the sheriff along with me. I waited in the lobby, watching as the sheriff went up and set things in motion. Soon, my wife was called down to the lobby, probably thinking it was some routine hotel thing, but there I was. She appeared in a bathrobe, and I'm almost certain she had nothing else on. She spotted me and panicked, frantically asking what I was doing there. I kept quiet as the sheriff asked her to confirm her name. She answered, still confused, and that's when she was served. Watching her stunned expression was deeply satisfying, but I wasn't there to rub it in. I turned to leave, feeling that my part was done. But she wouldn't let me, grabbing my arm and demanding to know what this was all about. I simply told her, "You had an affair. I'm leaving you." Simple. Well, that set her off. She started yelling and gripping my arm harder, refusing to let go. The sheriff had to step in, ordering her to release me, and finally she did. Then she burst into tears, claiming she could explain and that I had it all wrong, that it was somehow my fault. I could feel my anger rising, so I walked away to cool off, heading back home. Apparently, she told her boss what had happened, and he freaked out, rushing back to his own house, where, unbeknownst to him, the boss's wife was already waiting with her own set of divorce papers. We hadn't given them time to think or strategize, ambushing them just like they'd blindsided us. My divorce should be finalized in a few months, while hers might take a bit longer. Ironically, neither of them wants to go through with the divorce. Their excuse? They claim they never intended to leave their families, that it was just a physical relationship and nothing more. They insist people have been through worse and still managed to save their marriages. They made a mistake and supposedly want a chance to undo the damage. I asked my wife what she thought would come out of all of this, and she said she hadn't been thinking, just going with the flow and acting out of character. Now she's not that person anymore. I told her she was deluding herself. Since the divorce started, people around me have criticized me for not giving her a second chance. My kids know a bit about the situation. They're fully on my side, though I know they'd rather we stayed together. I can feel my own resolve slipping, especially since we're still living in the same house, and she started therapy and reading the infidelity book I bought months ago. She claims to be remorseful and says she'll do anything to make things right. I just tell her she's only sorry she got caught, and that's all I need to know. She's even called me bitter and resentful, saying I'm too focused on negativity to look beyond her mistake. Though she apologized later, I know that's how she really feels. Meanwhile, the boss's wife and I have stayed in touch, which drives my wife nuts. She accuses me of having a revenge affair or claims her boss's wife is keeping me from giving our marriage another chance. She's begged me to cut contact with her boss's wife, just as she supposedly has with her boss, but I refuse. Why should I cut anyone off now? We didn't do anything wrong, and I told her as much. She still refuses to give up, and I can tell she's desperately trying to explain away her affair and share her so-called thought process with me. I see it as nothing but excuses, so I don't engage. Now she wants us to do therapy together, but I've read about therapists putting the blame on the betrayed partner, so I told her no way. She wants us to read more books on healing from infidelity, but what's the point if we're headed for divorce? She even tried to initiate intimacy, but I shut that down too, telling her she wasn't going to manipulate me with physical affection. She said it was genuine, but I told her it's too late to say she loves me now. Family and friends, even my mom, are frustrated with me, saying everyone makes mistakes and that she's truly learned from hers. But I've told them all the same thing. I refuse to be anyone's fallback plan. I feel a bit guilty treating her this way because there's still love mixed in with the hurt, but the respect is gone. Some say I'm being too harsh, that I'll regret moving this quickly and not giving her a chance. I'm honestly starting to question if I'm being too cruel. She's trying hard, but I just can't bring myself to care. What do you guys think? Am I making the right call with the divorce? Or is everyone right that I'm being too cold? Let me know what you think. All right, before we get to any updates, let me just say, I'm fully on this guy's side. A mistake is forgetting a name, not a 2-year affair. Stick around for the rest of this crazy story. Let's be clear, a 2-year affair, emotional and physical, right under your roof, is nothing short of pure betrayal. It's not a mistake, and anyone who suggests it was a slip-up would be hearing the same thing from me. For 2 years, she didn't think of you. She didn't consider you in the least. She denied you any say in the marriage by keeping this hidden, leaving you in the dark, while you had no chance to make decisions for yourself based on the truth. This wasn't just a single act. It was a lie she maintained every day for 2 years. All that time and effort she poured into her boss should have gone into your marriage. It's clear she took you for granted, treating you like an afterthought. That marriage you thought you had? It's gone. Divorce her. And from there, decide if there's even a path toward any kind of relationship with her again. All right, on to update 1. Things between my wife and me are in a relatively good place, but it's definitely not because we're reconciling. I'm still going through with the divorce, which is fast approaching. My last update was removed by the auto mod, but here's the short version. She's still begging for another chance, pulling out all the stops. But 2 years? That's not something I can get over. If it had been a one-time thing, maybe I could think about forgiveness. But 2 years is a slap in the face. I've been attending a few therapy sessions with her. I love her still, as much as it hurts to say, and I'm not a monster. Our first session actually went pretty well, and I could see she was remorseful. She's not handled everything perfectly, but I see that she's putting in the effort. The second session? It was rough. She got upset because I still talk to the boss's wife, and she's terrified I'll go for a revenge affair. I think it was the angriest I've been since all this began. We argued about it a lot afterward because she demanded I cut contact with the boss's wife, but I made it clear I wasn't going to do that. Eventually, I promised her there wouldn't be a revenge affair. I know I owe her nothing, but for now, she's still technically my wife, and I want to hold true to my word until this is over. Since then, I've gone to a few more sessions, but not because I'm holding out hope for the marriage. I go because I want to see her progress with my own eyes. The boss's wife is still going through her own divorce and dealing with a husband who's fighting her every step of the way. We talk on our tough days, but it's nothing more than friendship. She's strong and has zero tolerance for nonsense, which I respect. As for my kids, they're holding up. They know that divorce doesn't mean we love them any less, even if they'd rather see us stay together. They understand why it's happening in an age-appropriate way. My wife left the advertising company soon after I served her, cutting ties with her boss. She's been reaching out on online forums for advice on trying to save the marriage, which, ironically, has helped her somewhat. At first, I couldn't understand why anyone stayed with a cheater, but watching my wife genuinely work to improve herself has given me a bit of perspective. She isn't a monster. She's just deeply flawed and made some awful choices. She's been trying to show that she's changed and is still hoping for another chance. Recently, we discussed the idea of her trying to reconnect after the divorce is finalized. She even offered a post-nuptial agreement to show her commitment. I'm not entirely opposed to the idea, but the path would be a long, grueling one if I ever decided to let her back in. I honestly don't see it being beneficial for either of us. If I'm honest, a large part of me wants this divorce purely as a form of justice. It's the only way I can stand up for myself without stooping to revenge. My mom and I finally patched things up after I told her the full extent of my wife's affair, and now she's angrier with my wife than I am. That one's going to be tricky to navigate, but it's a bridge I'll cross later. So, stay strong, Opie. Remember that she's only putting in the effort now because she got caught. She'll probably go all lovey-dovey on you or ramp up the crazy behavior to win you over, but don't lose sight of all the time and money she wasted cheating, the family time she stole, and the way she made you question yourself. She had 2 years to come clean, but she only cared once it all unraveled. I look forward to you breaking free from that toxicity. Now for update rant 2. Lately, her paranoia about a revenge affair has gotten out of hand. She knows I still talk to the other betrayed spouse, OBS, and she hates it. My wife is extremely insecure compared to her. OBS is younger, an actual model, stunningly attractive, and owns a thriving business. So naturally, my wife's fear of a revenge affair is off the charts, even though I've told her repeatedly it's not happening. She actually had the nerve to lecture me on how two wrongs don't make a right. Sure, she's not wrong, and I have no plans to go there, but the hypocrisy? Unbelievable. The other day I mentioned I'd be visiting OBS, and my wife got all sad and clingy, desperate for me to stay. Every time I go, she cycles between extreme sadness and a possessive, clingy attitude. I'm keeping my head clear on this one, though. I can't even count how many times she's thrown herself at me lately, all to make sure I don't cheat on her in return. Each time I reject her, it only seems to get worse. Honestly, I'm stunned at the level of selfishness in this behavior. She's fixated on her own pain, completely disregarding the mess she's left for me to pick up. It's wild to see how, in situations like this, cheaters often think of themselves first, while the ones they betray are left to trudge through the wreckage. Another frustration? Even though my kids still see her kids, my wife assumes I'd use any opportunity to hook up with the other betrayed spouse, OBS, as if I could sink to that level. She doesn't believe that I'm above that. Meanwhile, her boss, the other man, is still holed up at their vacation home, begging OBS to take him back. I won't lie. Seeing him suffer the consequences brings a little satisfaction. He hasn't dared to confront me, knowing how much leverage I have over him. He avoids seeing me and makes sure I'm not around before visiting his kids. Honestly, I pity him. These days, my wife is being overly apologetic, showering me with affection, which I ignore. I'm just not in a place to accept it. Today we have another therapy session, and I feel the urge to let loose, to finally unload the pain and anger that have been simmering. The rage I feel has only grown, and I know I need to address it. People have asked, why does she care about your loyalty now, when the marriage is nearing divorce? She gave up the right to expect anything when she cheated. It's selfish of her to want my faithfulness, especially considering the lengths I went to for her happiness. Sure, maybe she feels guilt and wants reconciliation, but I don't see it happening. Now for update 3, it finally hit me. I spent all these years thinking I'd wasted my life on someone who was, in the end, unworthy. But looking back, she did give me incredible kids and great memories, things I'll always cherish. I understand now that I can do better, and that I deserve better. After everything, she left me feeling less than, investing all her energy in someone else, putting me down when another man gave her attention. I'm finally realizing that I'm over her. Really over her. What's ironic? Now she's bending over backward to win me back, trying to prove her love, making every effort to support me. She's suddenly adventurous in bed, something she never was with me before. The lazy intimacy we shared now stands out so clearly as a reminder of what I was missing. Through her messages with I've only seen a fraction of how intense their affair was. Yet now she's ready to show me she loves me in every way possible. Now she respects my boundaries, goes out of her way to support me, and treats me with the admiration I always wished she would. She's also brutally honest, sometimes to the point of embarrassment, openly wearing her guilt like a permanent badge. She says she'd do anything to make it up to me. But when I'm unmoved, she's miserable, which makes me feel conflicted, sometimes even guilty. But it's necessary. Why can't I see her remorse as a positive? Why can't I make sense of her actions now? When people say these things can strengthen a marriage, many argue that long-term affairs have been overcome. So why am I unable to make a rational decision and separate emotion from judgment? One answer: I refuse to accept disrespect. Maybe there was a time I would have considered it, but I'm well past that. So, for everyone who's reached out and asked about my situation, here's where I stand. I'm going to spend Christmas with my family, but after that, I'm moving on for good. I've stopped letting the noise in my head justify her control over me. I'm not giving her or our relationship another chance. It's truly over. My wife isn't a villain, and I want her to be happy, just not with me. She's shown me who she is, and I'm finally listening. I actually invited OBS out for dinner after the holidays as a way to thank her for all the support. People might read into this, but it's just dinner. If anything more happens, it will be because we both choose it. As for OM, I couldn't care less about him. Marriage feels like a hollow concept now, and I don't think I'll marry again. The emotional toll and financial drain make the whole idea seem like a sham at this point. Sorry if that sounds cynical. It's just where I am right now. I don't mean to come off harsh, but I'm still pretty jaded. I gave this woman the best years of my life, and now it's sinking in just how little I received in return. You're finally seeing it clearly. She was the one who wanted you to make a lifetime commitment, to be faithful, to provide, to raise a family together. She picked you for that role. But when it came to effort, she put hers into another man. She gave him the attention, the intimacy, the respect, and left you with the bare minimum. And now she's desperate to be the perfect wife. Honestly, it's all regret. If her love and devotion were real, she would have given them to you instead of him. Sure, she might feel remorse now, but you don't cheat for 2 years and give someone else the best of you if you truly respect or value your spouse. Some people say she'll learn a hard lesson and be better for the next guy. And that thought is hard to stomach, but it doesn't mean she's worth staying with. Her lessons came at the expense of your heart, and that never should have been the case. Move forward and find someone who doesn't need to wreck your life to learn how to value you. And now, here's update 4. It's officially over. The divorce was finalized almost 3 weeks ago. In the days that followed, I grieved as though I'd lost a loved one. The reality of it all hit me like a tidal wave, and I cried harder than I had since the day I discovered the affair. I went through a lot of rage and felt lower than I ever thought possible. It's all settled now for my ex. I made sure things were organized for her, largely because of the kids. She moved into an apartment, a serious downgrade from our home, which seems to have hit her pretty hard. She's still seeing a therapist, still reading up on infidelity and recovery. Who knows why? We've had long conversations around the divorce with minimal physical contact. I know I shouldn't entertain her too much, but for the sake of our kids, I want us to have a respectful co-parenting relationship. Thanks to advice from this community and others, I'm handling things as logically as I can. As expected, she's still eager to reconcile, but I'm not inclined to put myself back in that position. This past weekend, I went out to dinner with OBS. My only intention was to enjoy good company and conversation. Things took a flirty turn, and even though I was initially reluctant, the night ended in a very passionate way. I'll spare you the details, but I'll say this. It was probably the most fulfilling experience I've ever had. OBS is incredibly giving, and the difference was night and day. I had no intention for it to go that far, but we were both willing, and I learned a few things along the way. For privacy's sake, I'll keep referring to her as OBS, even though she's now officially divorced. I don't expect our relationship to go any further. We both need to sort through our own emotional baggage. Still, I feel good, genuinely good. I know some people won't approve, but that experience really boosted my self-esteem. I finally felt desired, alive, and I now realize what I was missing all along. I'll never settle for robotic affection again. What's more satisfying is knowing I didn't compromise my integrity to get here. Looking back, I'm proud of how I handled everything. I'm not perfect, but I did the best I could. I came out of this whole ordeal luckier than many betrayed spouses, even if I lost a lot financially. I listened to people with experience instead of going in blind, and that made all the difference. To everyone who offered support, you saved me from losing more of myself in this process, and I'll be forever grateful. Takeaways: value yourself. Never accept disrespect, even from those closest to you. Everyone deserves a relationship that's fulfilling and supportive. Never settle for less. A healthy, committed relationship should include true intimacy and mutual respect. If your partner isn't bringing their best effort to you, but has done so before in an affair, that's something you don't have to tolerate. Every relationship has challenges, but giving your all to someone means expecting they'll give you theirs in return. Don't feel guilty about expecting that from a spouse. And here's the truth. If they gave that energy to someone else and can't meet you halfway, it's not just unfair. It's something that erodes the core of the relationship. Don't settle for anything less than mutual respect and open communication. No one is asking for something they don't deserve just by wanting a fulfilling relationship. Of course, communicating your needs is always the first step. I'm not saying you have to lay down ultimatums or threats. Just be honest. Let them know what you need. And if they aren't willing to meet you in the middle, don't just sit back and accept a lukewarm relationship. When it comes to intimacy, both partners need to feel respected and valued. And if you find yourself betrayed, understand this. Healing will ultimately come from within you. No one else can do it for you. Therapy, community, and self-reflection help me see that real healing is about reclaiming your self-worth. There's this stereotype that the ones who cheat are more exciting or passionate, but I found that's rarely the case. Often, it's those very people who hold back affection and neglect the partner who's right there, willing to give them the world. OBS and I both found ourselves questioning what we lacked, only to realize we weren't lacking at all. We just needed people who could see and appreciate us fully. I even told OBS that I saw in her everything my ex couldn't recognize in me, and I think that's meant a lot to her. Now, here's the final update on this chapter of my life. Closure. I'm okay. I haven't fallen off the map, and I'm still staying consistent with individual counseling. And yes, OBS and I are still together. She finalized her settlement with OM recently and handled it with an impressive level of maturity and grace. She could have been vengeful, but she chose to keep things civil for the sake of her kids. Meanwhile, we're both working hard to make sure our kids adjust to all the changes and that they understand our relationship is separate from the responsibilities we have as parents. It's a tough balance, and not everyone is on board, especially my daughter, but we're doing the best we can. As for my ex and OM, the tension between them is almost laughable. Neither one wants to take full responsibility, so when they're in the same room, it's like watching two people trying to dodge each other's guilt. My ex is still pushing for reconciliation, convinced OBS is somehow blinding me to what we had. I thought she'd moved on for her own sake, but I was wrong. At a 4th of July gathering with friends, she even tried to make a move on me. I shut it down, but clearly it wasn't firm enough. Many of you told me this would happen, and I admit I didn't believe it. But here she is, pulling out every trick she never tried when I was loyal to her just to get my attention. And honestly, that's the part one still don't get. I treated her better than anyone in my life, yet she treated me with disdain and neglect. The minute I walked away, she's ready to bend over backward. I see it now for what it is. She just doesn't like that I finally put myself first. OBS has been patient about all this and trusts me to handle my ex, but I can tell she's growing frustrated with the antics. To those who've stuck with me through this, I owe you my thanks. Your advice and support helped me navigate one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. Your stories, your honesty, it's meant everything. I took each piece of wisdom to heart, and it's made all the difference. It's because of this community that I held my ground, took stock of what I deserve, and made sure I didn't lose myself along the way. I learned a few things I want to share, especially for those who might be in a similar place. First and foremost, value yourself. Every person deserves a partner who respects them, who loves them fully, and who isn't keeping the best parts of themselves locked away. Don't accept disrespect from anyone, and don't settle for scraps. You're worth so much more than that. A healthy, committed relationship isn't about enduring each other's worst. It's about bringing out each other's best. You deserve to be in a relationship that gives you strength, that brings peace and fulfillment, and never leaves you questioning your own worth. Finally, know that you have a right to say, I deserve better, and act on it. The life I thought I'd have with my ex is gone, but the one I'm building now is one where I know my value. I know what I bring to a relationship, and I know I'll never again settle for less than mutual respect and love. OBS and I are still figuring things out, taking it one day at a time, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm on the right path. So here's to that, and to everyone out there who's ready to stand up for themselves and for the life they deserve. In hindsight, I can see the lessons hidden in all that pain. Sometimes we learn our worth only after facing rejection or betrayal. And though that journey can be shattering, it's also one of discovery and strength. Life may not be perfect, but as long as we don't lose sight of our own dignity, we find ourselves standing tall, wiser, and more resilient than before. The struggles are hard, but necessary steps on the road to peace and fulfillment. Thank you all for being part of my journey, and here's to each of us finding the happiness and respect we deserve. Let's keep moving forward, trusting that this strength is just the beginning of a fulfilling, authentic life for us all. As I reflect on everything I've gone through, I realize just how much I've learned about relationships and the value of self-respect. For years, I took on all the responsibilities I thought a good partner should. I gave my time, effort, and love wholeheartedly, believing that the commitment itself would keep things secure. But I now see that true love is more than that. It's about sharing life with someone who values you and reciprocates not out of obligation, but out of genuine care and respect. Relationships need both people investing equally, or resentment builds up fast. And once you hit that point of unbalanced investment, it's tough to get back on track. If there's one piece of advice I'd give anyone, it's to recognize when you're settling. Just because someone says they love you doesn't mean they're bringing their best to the table. Pay attention to how they show it, how they make you feel seen, valued, and respected. If someone has to learn these lessons only after causing you pain, it's often because they didn't fully appreciate you in the first place. Waiting for them to come around can mean waiting years, only to find yourself sidelined in your own life. There's also the importance of community. Support and solidarity from people who understand your situation made a huge difference for me. Sometimes the hardest lessons are easier to bear when you're not carrying them alone. Friends, family, or even strangers can remind you that you're not defined by someone else's betrayal. I've been incredibly lucky to have a community that offered support and insight, grounding me in moments when I wasn't sure I'd find the strength on my own. It's because of them that I was able to start looking forward and putting my needs at the forefront again. As much as I've grown through this experience, I'm also grateful for the unexpected realization of what's possible in the future. It's been healing to see how meaningful life can be when I'm with someone who doesn't just meet me halfway, but actually wants to be a positive, supportive partner. For the first time in a long time, I feel encouraged to see what the future holds, free of the weight of broken promises and misunderstandings. So, for anyone going through a similar journey, know this: even in the worst heartbreak, there's a chance for renewal. The pain doesn't last forever, and what lies on the other side of that hurt is a stronger, more resilient version of you. The setbacks I experienced aren't just things I want to move past. They're stepping stones that have shown me a new direction. They've given me a clear idea of what I'll never settle for again and taught me to be honest about my worth. For the first time, I'm excited about that. I hope anyone facing similar struggles can find the strength to see what they deserve and go after it with full confidence. To those who have supported me along the way, your words, encouragement, and kindness were lifelines. I can say with gratitude that I am moving forward stronger, wiser, and with a deeper appreciation for life and respect. Here's to leaving the past behind and building a future filled with the happiness, respect, and fulfillment that we each deserve.